They say accidents don't just happen. Sometimes they're carefully staged tragedies hidden beneath the mask of love. It was a rainy night on July 3, 2017, when a man named Rohit received a frantic phone call from his brother-in-law. "There's been an accident. My car flipped. Your sister's hurt badly." The words sliced through the storm like lightning. But what no one knew that night was that this accident would unravel a web of betrayal darker than anyone could imagine. The next morning, the town woke to the shrill cries of sirens echoing along the highway. Rohit arrived at the crash site, heart pounding. Twisted metal, shattered glass, and the smell of burnt fuel filled the air. The car was a mangled ruin at the bottom of a small ditch. Inside lay his sister, Meera, motionless, pale, her wedding bangles smeared with blood. Her husband, Samir, sat nearby, his face buried in his hands, muttering, I tried to save her." But something in his trembling voice didn't sound right. As police officers combed through the wreckage, one of them frowned. The car's airbags hadn't deployed and the brakes looked tampered with. The officer whispered to another, their eyes narrowing towards Samir. But before anyone could question him, Samir collapsed dramatically, clutching his chest, crying out for forgiveness, an act that earned him sympathy, not suspicion. The case was quickly labeled a tragic road accident for now. Rohit couldn't sleep that night. His sister had been full of life, careful, cautious, not someone who'd drive recklessly. And then there was the call. Why had Samir called him instead of the police or an ambulance first? Why had he sounded so rehearsed, so strangely calm after claiming his wife was dying? Doubt crept into Rohit's mind like a slow-spreading poison. He decided to dig deeper, even if it meant uncovering truths that would tear his family apart. A week later, while collecting Meera's belongings from the couple's home, Rohit found something that made his blood run cold. A small diary tucked beneath her pillow. The last page was dated just a day before her death. The entry read, "If anything happens to me, it won't be an accident. I've seen his messages. I know about her." The handwriting was shaky, the words smeared as if written in fear. Rohit's heart sank. Who was her? And what had Meera discovered before she died? Rohit went to the police with the diary, but the officer barely glanced at it. "We already closed the file," he said with a shrug. "She died in an accident. Happens every day." But Rohit refused to let it go. He visited Samir's office, pretending to collect insurance papers. While waiting, he overheard two co-workers whispering, "He's acting normal now. Going on trips again. Poor Meera didn't deserve that." "Yeah, and he's back with her too," the other replied. Her name, Priya. The same woman Meera had mentioned in her diary. When Rohit followed Samir that evening, he saw him laughing with Priya at a quiet cafe on the city's outskirts. The same cafe he used to visit with Meera. His stomach twisted in rage and disbelief. The so-called grieving husband was enjoying dinner with his lover barely 2 weeks after the accident. Rohit snapped a few photos from a distance. He didn't have proof of murder yet, but he had enough to reopen old wounds. The next day, he confronted Samir. "How could you?" Rohit shouted. "She trusted you." Samir's face hardened, his eyes cold. "Watch your words," he hissed. "You think you know everything? Stay out of this before you regret it." That threat said more than any confession could. Rohit realized he was close to something dangerous. Something that people might kill to keep buried. Determined, Rohit began retracing the days leading up to Meera's death. He learned from her friend Neha that Meera had confided her fears. She said Samir had changed. He used to be kind, but lately he'd started drinking, arguing, disappearing at night. She thought he was cheating. Neha whispered, tears in her eyes. She told me she was going to confront him that night. That night, the same night she crashed. The pieces were falling into place, but the full picture was still hidden behind a curtain of deceit. Late one evening, Rohit visited the crash site again. Under the faint glow of his flashlight, something caught his eye. A broken phone half buried in the mud. It was Meera's. The police hadn't found it. When he took it home and managed to power it on, a series of unsent voice notes appeared. In the last one, Meera's trembling voice whispered, "He's taking me somewhere. I think he knows that I found out. If anything happens." The recording cut off mid-sentence with the sound of screeching tires. Rohit's hands shook. This was proof. She hadn't died by chance. Rohit rushed to the authorities again, but this time, an officer named Inspector Deshmukh listened carefully. The evidence, the diary, the photos, the voice notes, painted a story of betrayal and murder disguised as an accident. Deshmukh reopened the case quietly, warning Rohit not to tell anyone. "People who stage accidents don't like being exposed," he said grimly. "And if your brother-in-law is as clever as he seems, he won't go down without a fight." That night, as Rohit drove home, a black SUV followed him through the dark highway. Every time he turned, it turned. Every time he slowed, it slowed. When he finally stopped by the roadside, the SUV sped past, but not before its tinted window rolled down just enough for him to see Samir's smirk in the reflection of his headlights. The message was clear. "Stop digging, or you'll be next." Rohit realized he'd crossed a line he couldn't return from. His sister's death wasn't just a case anymore. It was a trap that was slowly tightening around him. But he couldn't stop. Not now. Somewhere hidden behind lies and fake tears was the truth Meera had died for, and he would uncover it, even if it cost him his own life. Rohit couldn't shake the chill crawling up his spine. Samir's smirk from the black SUV haunted his thoughts. It wasn't just a warning. It was a message that said, "I'm watching you." He knew he had to move carefully now. Every step, every call, every visit could be his last. But truth has its own voice, quiet at first, then louder until it's impossible to ignore. And Rohit was finally listening. The next morning, Inspector Deshmukh called. "We ran a forensic recheck on the car," he said. "Your instincts were right. The brake lines were cut clean, not damaged in the crash. And the angle of the skid mark suggests the car didn't spin out by accident. Someone wanted that car to hit the ditch." Rohit's hands clenched around the phone. His worst fear had turned real. Meera had been murdered. Deshmukh continued. "We'll need to confront him soon. But if he's smart, he'll deny everything. We need something that ties him directly to the tampering Rohit thought of Priya, the other woman, the one Meera had written about. If anyone knew Samir's secrets, it was her. He decided to find her, no matter what it took. That evening, Rohit waited outside Priya's apartment. When she finally appeared, dressed elegantly and laughing into her phone, he stepped forward. "Priya," he called softly. Her smile vanished. "Who are you?" she asked sharply. "I'm Meera's brother," he said, his voice trembling. "We need to talk. About Samir." Her eyes widened in fear before darting around the street. "Not here," she whispered. "Follow me." Inside her small, dimly lit apartment, Priya sat silently for a long time. Finally, she spoke. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen," she murmured. "Samir told me he'd leave her. He said their marriage was over. But when she found out about us, everything changed." Rohit leaned forward, his heart pounding. "Changed how?" Priya looked away. "He said she'd ruin him, expose his business fraud, destroy his name. He said he had no choice." A tear slid down her cheek. "I thought he was bluffing until that night. She told him that Samir had called her on the night of the accident. His voice was calm, too calm. 'It's done,' he'd said. 'No more problems now.'" Priya realized then that he hadn't meant divorce, he'd meant death. She broke down completely, clutching her face. "I loved him, but I didn't know he was capable of this." Rohit recorded everything on his phone. It wasn't just a confession. It was a doorway to justice. Inspector Deshmukh acted fast. They decided to trick Samir into revealing more. A week later, Deshmukh invited Samir to the station under the pretext of clearing some insurance paperwork. Rohit watched from the observation room, fists tight. Samir entered, confident and composed. "Just a few formalities," Deshmukh said casually, sliding a folder toward him. "Sign here, and we'll close the case." As Samir leaned down, Deshmukh added, "You know, it's strange. The brake lines, they were cut. Almost surgical work. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you?" Samir froze. His pen hovered mid-air. "What are you implying, Inspector?" he asked coldly. Deshmukh smiled faintly. "Nothing yet, but it's funny. Your wife left a voice note saying she was scared. Scared of you." Samir's jaw tightened. He slammed the pen down. "You have no proof," he snapped, standing up. "This interrogation is over." But as he stormed out, Deshmukh looked at Rohit through the glass. "He's cracking," he said quietly. "He knows we're close." That night, Samir's perfect mask began to crumble. He started calling Priya repeatedly, leaving frantic messages. "They know something, delete everything." But Priya, terrified and guilt-ridden, handed her phone to Deshmukh. The messages, along with the recorded confession, were enough to file an official murder charge. The next morning, officers surrounded Samir's house. When he saw the police cars approaching, he didn't run. He laughed. "You think you can prove it?" he sneered. "You don't even know the half of it." Inside the interrogation room, Samir finally broke his silence. "You all think you're so clever," he began, smirking. "She found my texts with Priya. She threatened to expose me, not just the affair, but my deals. I had no choice." His tone was cold, mechanical. "I told her we'd go for a drive, talk it out. She didn't even see it coming. A single push, a crash planned to look like fate. Easy." The room fell silent. Rohit's heart shattered as he listened through the glass. His sister's death, just another solution to Samir's greed. But Deshmukh wasn't done. "What about the brakes?" he asked. Samir smiled. "A mechanic friend owed me a favor. Money can fix anything. Even a conscience." That final sentence sealed his fate. The recording of that confession became the most damning evidence in court. Samir was arrested on charges of murder, fraud, and tampering with evidence. Justice, at last, seemed within reach. However, fate wasn't done twisting the knife. 2 days before his first court hearing, Samir managed to escape police custody during a transfer. News channels exploded with headlines. "Businessman accused of killing wife escapes from police van." panic rippled through Rohit's family. The man who had killed Meera was free, and he had nothing left to lose. That night, Rohit received a message from an unknown number. Just 3 words. "See you soon." His blood ran cold. He immediately called Inspector Deshmukh, who promised full protection, but deep down Rohit knew Samir wouldn't run forever. He'd come back to finish what he started, and this time there would be no witnesses, no mercy. Rohit sat by his window, staring into the darkness beyond the streetlights. Somewhere out there, Samir was planning his next move. But Rohit was ready now. Meera's voice, her laughter, her trust, they echoed in his mind, giving him strength. This wasn't just about revenge anymore, it was about ending a nightmare that had already taken too much. As the night deepened, thunder rolled across the sky, and rain began to fall, just like it had on the night of the accident. Rohit looked out, whispering to the storm, "Come, Samir, this time I'm waiting." The storm outside seemed endless that night. Each thunderclap shook the windows as if the sky itself was warning Rohit that something terrible was coming. He hadn't slept for days, not since the moment he'd read those 3 chilling words. "See you soon." Every shadow outside his house felt alive. Every sound made his heart race. Samir was out there somewhere, a murderer without remorse, now desperate and dangerous. Inspector Deshmukh had placed officers around Rohit's neighborhood, but Rohit knew that Samir was too smart to be caught by routine patrols. The man had planned his wife's murder like a chess move. Escaping from police custody was just another piece of his game. That night, Rohit sat on the couch, gripping a framed photo of Meera, her smile soft, her eyes full of warmth. "I'll end this, Meera," he whispered. "I promise you I'll finish what you started." Around midnight, the power went out. The streetlights flickered once and died, plunging the entire lane into darkness. The air grew heavy with silence. Rohit froze. He could hear the faint crunch of gravel outside the gate. Someone was there. Slowly he reached for the small metal rod he kept beside the door. Another sound, this time closer, the creak of the gate hinge. His pulse quickened. Then a familiar voice drifted through the dark. "You've been busy, brother-in-law." Rohit's breath caught. The door creaked open slightly, revealing Samir. Soaked from the rain, eyes wild, a sinister smile cutting across his face. "Missed me," he said softly, stepping inside. "You should have stayed quiet, Rohit." None of this would have happened. Rohit tightened his grip on the rod. "You murdered my sister," he hissed. "You think I'll just let that go?" Samir chuckled. "Murder? It was destiny. She wanted to ruin me. I just helped fate do its job." The rage inside Rohit exploded. He swung the rod, but Samir dodged easily, grabbing a vase and hurling it across the room. Glass shattered. The 2 men clashed violently, the room echoing with their struggle. The thud of fists, the crash of furniture, the storm roaring outside like a furious witness. Rohit's face bled, but he didn't stop. Every blow he threw carried Meera's voice, her pain, her fear. "You'll pay for what you did," he shouted. Samir pushed him hard, sending him crashing into a table. "You think you're a hero," he sneered. "You don't even know the truth." Rohit, gasping, stared up at him. "What truth?" Samir smirked. "Your sister wasn't innocent. She was going to expose me because she wanted everything. The house, the money, even Priya out of the way. She wasn't some angel, Rohit. She played her own games." Rohit's mind spun. Was he lying? Or had Meera really hidden something deeper? Before Rohit could respond, blue lights flashed outside. Police sirens. Samir's face twisted in anger. You called them? No, Rohit whispered, realizing Deshmukh had probably been tracking Samir all along. The front door burst open as officers stormed in. Samir grabbed a shard of broken glass, holding it to Rohit's throat. Back off, or he dies, he screamed. The room froze. Inspector Deshmukh raised his weapon, his voice calm. Samir, it's over. You've got nowhere to go. Rainwater dripped from Samir's hair onto Rohit's shoulder as he hissed, No, Inspector. I decide when it's over. His hand trembled slightly. The first crack in his arrogance. Deshmukh noticed. Think about it, Samir. You killed your wife, betrayed your lover, and ran from justice. What's left for you now? End this before it's too late. Samir's eyes darted around, toward the window, the officers, and finally toward Rohit. She deserved it, he whispered again, his voice hollow. She betrayed me first, and then in a single tragic moment he turned the shard toward himself. The sound of breaking glass echoed one last time before his body collapsed to the floor. Silence followed, heavy, suffocating, final. The officers rushed in and Deshmukh knelt beside him. It was over. Samir's pulse faded away, taking with it the only man who could have spoken Meera's truth, or his twisted version of it. Rohit sank to his knees, staring at the lifeless body. The storm outside began to quiet, as if nature itself was mourning the chaos that had just ended. Days later, the news broke across every channel. Husband who murdered wife dies during police operation. For the world, the case was closed, justice served. But for Rohit, closure was something else entirely. He visited Meera's grave, the earth still fresh, the rain leaving small glistening drops on the marble. You can rest now, he whispered, placing a single white rose. He's gone. It's finally over, but deep down, something still bothered him. Samir's last words. She betrayed me first. Could there be any truth hidden in those final moments? Rohit went back to Meera's diary, flipping through every page, searching for a clue he might have missed. On the last page, beneath her trembling handwriting, was a faint, almost invisible line. Like an afterthought, it read, I did something terrible, but I'll make it right. He'll never know. Rohit stared at those words, his heart heavy with new uncertainty. What had Meera done? Had she been hiding something to protect him, or was there truly another layer to this tragedy? The answers, like her final breath, were gone forever. He closed the diary, tears blurring his vision. Sometimes, he realized, truth dies with the people who keep it. As he walked away from the graveyard, the wind rustled through the trees, almost like Meera's voice whispering through the leaves, gentle, forgiving, and sad. The case was over. But the story? It would live on in questions, in whispers, in what-ifs. And perhaps that was the real punishment, not knowing the whole truth but living with the fragments that remained. That night, as Rohit looked out at the calm sky, he couldn't help but wonder, do we ever truly know the people we love? Or are we all just one hidden secret away from becoming strangers to each other? But tell me this. If you discovered that someone you loved deeply had betrayed you, would you seek forgiveness, or revenge?